that a bird strike was a reason behind the initial
saying that it does look as if it was because of the birds.
So the theory, a bird strike caused the...
Reported a bird strike and declared Mayday.
What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about dangers to airplanes? Engine failures? Bad weather? Maybe even mechanical issues? But would you believe that one of the most unexpected threats comes from something as innocent as a bird? Yes, birds. Those chirping, feathered creatures we see every day have been responsible for bringing down multi-million-dollar airplanes, leading to tragic and shocking consequences. Sounds unbelievable, right? Well, stick around, because today we're uncovering 5 jaw-dropping cases where these airborne intruders turned routine flights into disasters. You won't believe what happened in some of these stories, especially number 3, which will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about air travel. Let's jump in. Case number 1, U.S. Airways Flight 1549, The Miracle on the Hudson. This is a story of survival against all odds. On January 15, 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 was just 3 minutes into its flight from New York's LaGuardia Airport when it collided with a flock of Canada geese. The bird struck both engines, causing complete engine failure. The plane was now a 70-ton glider flying over one of the busiest cities in the world. Captain Chesley "Sully" Sullenberger had to make a split-second decision. With no time to return to the airport, he decided to ditch the plane in the Hudson River. His extraordinary skill saved all 155 passengers and crew on board, earning him the title of a national hero. Interesting fact, did you know that the geese that brought down Flight 1549 were not even local? DNA testing revealed that they were migratory geese, likely traveling through the area at the wrong time. This led to a major change in how airports manage migratory bird patterns. Case number 2, Eastern Airlines. Flight 375, a deadly flock. Let's go back to October 4th, 1960. Eastern Airlines. Flight 375 was taking off from Boston Logan Airport when it flew straight into a flock of starlings. The engines started to sputter and fail, one after the other. Before the pilots could regain control, the plane crashed into Boston Harbor. Out of the 72 people on board, only 10 survived. This was one of the deadliest bird strike incidents in history and served as a wake-up call for the aviation industry. The crash forced experts to think about how bird activity near airports could lead to such devastating consequences. Interesting fact, this accident led to the very first studies on how bird strikes impact jet engines. It became the starting point for modern bird strike testing, which includes firing dead birds into engines at high speeds to assess their resilience. Before we move on, here's a question. Have you ever noticed strange noises or bird deterrents near an airport? Airports use high-tech systems to keep birds away, but as you'll see in our next case, even that isn't always enough. Case number 3, El Al Flight 1862, a crash that shook Amsterdam. October 4th, 1992, was a dark day for the people of Amsterdam. El Al Flight 1862, a cargo plane carrying goods from Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport, struck a flock of birds shortly after takeoff. The impact caused an engine to detach, taking part of the wing with it. The pilots did their best to stabilize the aircraft, but with such severe structural damage, their efforts were in vain. The plane crashed into an apartment complex, killing all 4 crew members and 39 people on the ground. It was a shocking reminder of how devastating bird strikes can be, not just for those on board, but also for people living near flight paths. Interesting fact. After this crash, Schiphol Airport became one of the first in the world to introduce a bird radar system. This technology helps detect bird activity in real time, giving air traffic controllers a chance to delay flights or reroute them. Case number 4, U.S. Air Force E-3 Sentry. A military loss. Bird strikes aren't just a problem for commercial aviation, they've hit military planes too. On September 22, 1995, a U.S. Air Force E-3 Sentry was taking off from Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska when it collided with a flock of Canada geese. Two of its engines failed instantly. With only two remaining engines, the aircraft didn't have enough power to stay airborne. It crashed into the nearby forest, killing all 24 military personnel on board. This tragedy highlighted the vulnerability of even the most advanced military planes to something as seemingly insignificant as birds. Interesting fact, after this crash, the U.S. military began deploying bird strike prevention teams at its air bases. These teams use techniques like habitat management, sound cannons, and even trained dogs to reduce bird activity around runways. Case number 5, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 409, a plunge into the Mediterranean. On January 25, 2010, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 409 was leaving Beirut when it encountered a flock of birds during its climb. The impact caused engine failure and severe control issues. Within minutes, the plane plunged into the Mediterranean Sea, killing all 90 people on board. The crash was a grim reminder that bird strikes are not just a Western aviation issue, they're a global problem. Despite efforts to mitigate the risks, some flights are still at the mercy of nature. Interesting fact, this crash sparked a major discussion about how to better monitor bird activity near airports in the Middle East. Some airports in the region now use drone technology to scare away birds, making the skies a bit safer. The science behind bird strikes. So how exactly does a bird bring down a plane? It's all about speed and impact. Planes travel so fast that even a small bird can cause catastrophic damage. If it hits an engine, it can destroy the internal mechanisms. If it hits the windshield, it can crack or even shatter it. Fun fact, engineers conduct bird strike tests on every commercial plane before it's approved for use. They use frozen chickens to simulate real-life impacts. Still, even with these precautions, as we've seen, bird strikes remain a serious threat. Quick question. Did you know that bird strikes happen every single day somewhere in the world? If this topic fascinates you, don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button. We've got plenty more thrilling aviation stories coming your way. Why bird strikes are still a problem. Despite advancements in technology and safety measures, bird strikes are still an issue. Airports have introduced everything from high-tech radars to bird harassment teams, but the skies are vast, and birds don't follow rules. These incidents remind us of the fragile balance between technology and nature. Planes might be engineering marvels, but they're still vulnerable to something as unpredictable as a bird's flight path. Birds might seem harmless, but in the world of aviation, they can cause chaos. These 5 cases prove that even small creatures can lead to big disasters.